Hey, Jackie, welcome back. All right, let's do this. I just spoke to Dr. Tasha via video chat, and that seemed to work. So, hey, Dr. Tasha, we finally made it happen.
Yes, good Lord.
I know, so many technical difficulties. And of course, this is my first Hot Girls Talk interview for on IG Live. So, there's going to be all sorts of complications, but I'm glad we figured it out, and I'm glad you're finally here. So everyone who's on the live with us now, if you have any questions for Dr. Tasha, feel free to hit that question bubble at the bottom right of your screen, and I will try my best to get to as many of those as possible. So, Dr. Tasha, we're so excited to finally be chatting with you, and I hear you have some good news to share today. Your book has been released, right? Your new book?
Yes, I'm super, super excited about my new book. So,
Okay, tell us a little bit about it.
okay. So it's called London Gets Curious. And it's all about, it's the story of a 9-year-old little girl who who is infinitely curious about, I don't know, sort of like her life. She's really curious about what she wants to be when she grows up. So she goes to talk to her favorite aunt, Titi, who she calls Titi, and they go on a journey through these 10 fun, unique, kind of off the wall, kind of maybe you don't know about STEM careers, because her aunt, her Titi, is a mechanical engineer. So she's all about getting girls into STEM. But, of course, she doesn't come out and say that. She just says, hey, have you heard about this? And this is
Right.
what this person does. And so London asks a trillion questions, and they sort of meander through these different careers, and you get to see London try each of the careers on. So you'll see a picture of her as an ethical hacker. You get to see her as a game developer. So
Cool.
yeah, so that's the story. I think it's a fun read. It's all about, you get to see sort of London and TT's relationship, but it's a story for girls everywhere. It's based off of my niece.
I was going
So
to say,
the
it sounds like there's some life experience that this book is based
yes,
on.
I am TT, but shh, you didn't hear it from me.
Okay.
Um, so, and London is my niece. So, and she's the best of, I mean, I'm biased, but she's the best of all the little girls in the world. She's just so full of life, and she's just so curious about stuff. And I really hope that she never loses that. And so I want to stoke that and make sure that she is not limiting her opportunities, because there's all sorts of careers, all sorts of things that she can do that people don't realize are STEM. So,
Right, absolutely. And I'm sure with you as her aunt, you will be able to help flourish that curiosity and guide her in the right direction. So, since your background, you started as mechanical engineer, I'd kind of like to switch gears here and ask, how would you describe mechanical engineering to someone like me who knows absolutely nothing about it?
well, okay. I'm trying to I think of mechanical engineering as sort of the dog's body of all engineering, right? It encompasses a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So you learn a little bit about electrical, you learn a little bit about architecture, you learn a little bit about structural, you learn a little bit about civil to be able to do the things that you do. Manufacturing, all of those things are encompassed in mechanical engineering. So if you had an interdisciplinary engineering major, it would probably be mechanical engineering. It's the broadest of all of them,
Okay.
but because it encompasses all of them. And so I had a career where I started off designing train car parts,
Very
actual train,
cool.
right.
That's
So because
super
you don't think
interesting.
about them, but there's someone out there this is their whole job. And then I went to designing car parts, and then I went to designing piping and plumbing systems for like large buildings, and did fiber optics before it became obsolete.
Right, right.
And then went to doing HVAC, fire protection, piping and plumbing for large commercial buildings. So commercial buildings, schools, stadiums, hospitals, all those things. So it's this like, so I've gone, it's almost like I went through across 3 different industries, but
Right.
I was still a mechanical engineer at each one of
Yeah.
them. So
It's a really broad category, it seems. So, how old were you when you know, first learned about that field of work?
I was a junior. No, I don't think that's true. I think I was going into well, technically I was a senior in high school. I didn't know anything about engineering. I actually thought I was going to be an architect because I like to
Okay.
draw, and I like to draw buildings and houses, and thought, okay, I'm going to do that because that's all that I knew. Didn't know that engineering was a whole thing, or was an industry, was a thing. Until I joined a program called Inroads that introduced me to all sorts of different types of engineering. And I had to decide which of these did I believe that, spoke to me the most. And mechanical was that one. My dad was a mechanic. And that's what, in my mind, I pictured that's what it was. But then as I got into it in college, it was like, oh, okay. So it was like architect adjacent.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I understand. I mean, they're both kind of like in the similar realm there.
Yep.
So is that kind of how, when you realized you wanted to pursue that, like when you went into college, were you still thinking you wanted to be an architect and then sort of pivoted from there?
Well, I went through the program at Inroads when I was in high school, and I pivoted at that point because I figured this is what it felt right. And so architects, didn't necessarily go away. It was just sort of like, this feels right. This feels better. So when I started applying to colleges, of course I was an anomaly. So I got all sorts of nice offers to go to
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
So I did, and mechanical engineering. And I was lucky enough that I really liked it. So I wouldn't tell anyone to pick their major the way that I picked my major. It was sort of like, it feels good. It's like, I don't know. You want to feel comfortable in the thing that you're doing. But you don't necessarily want to pick it like there's a list of engineering majors, and you say, that's the one for me. Like, I wouldn't tell you to do that, but that's how I did it, and it worked out.
Okay. So, I mean, since you kind of, are thinking back on that time, is there anything you would like tell your younger self now, if you could?
Ooh,
Or something you
okay. So
like
you mean,
wish your younger self knew then that you know now?
oh, okay. So do you mean in general or just about picking a major? There's a
I mean,
lot.
just sort of general, but you were kind of, talking about like that was your track, and maybe it would go a little differently, or you tell people would do it a little differently. So
So I would so here's what I would tell my younger self is to really trust yourself. Like, the one thing that I've learned as an older adult is that you really never lie to yourself. You may cover it up, you may not listen to yourself, your intuition, your gut, whatever you want to call that, it always tells you the truth. And the sooner um you the sooner you're able to tap into that and really grab holds of that idea, it will serve you well in every aspect of your life.
great, great. That's excellent, excellent advice. I don't know, there was some meme going around recently where it was like, if you could say 3 things to your 18-year-old self, what would it be? And after like thinking about it, I was like, you know what? Believe in yourself. 3 simple
Right.
words that, an older person wishes they could tell their 18-year-old self, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it's the through it all, whether you're in STEM or not, because STEM is my thing, and I can talk about it all day. Um, I think throughout when I all of the highs and the lows of a career, of all of the, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Um, if I had really trusted myself, I feel like some of the lows wouldn't have been as low.
Right.
Some of the losses wouldn't have hurt so much. But again, hindsight's 2020. So maybe they were what they were because I was supposed to get what I got. So there's that
Yeah,
too. But
absolutely.
I wasn't one of those people who trusted myself enough. I always trusted what other people said or other people were doing as opposed to trusting myself.
Right, right. Well, I mean, I think that's good advice that anybody who's, on this live can even heed for themselves now. But since you're kind of mentioning, these highs and lows throughout your career and before that you were kind of like an anomaly being a woman of color in mechanical engineering and in STEM, was there ever a time, during your career that you felt you weren't receiving proper credit for your work or didn't receive proper credit for your work?
Well, that was a great deal of my career when I wasn't, well, actually, I'll say that's actually still happening, but in just different ways. When I was
Yeah.
an engineer, though, I'm in spaces where I am the only person of color and I'm the only woman. And so you're in spaces where no one looks like you. No one's even your same gender. So you have to, it's almost like you have to claim a space. You have to stake out a space and then own it. With clarity, with sureness, or in other words, they just can't hear you because you are not supposed to be there. And it's not that they mean it that way, right? And I'm not trying to make excuses for them. The environment needs to change, but understanding that they've been in an environment, they being normative, white heterosexual men for the most
Right.
part. Okay, that you're not supposed to be there. They're used to looking at themselves across the table,
Right.
so they see you, and it's like they don't know what to do with you. And so it's up to you to decide, right? Who you're going to be in that space. Are you going to use your voice? Are you going to stand up for yourself? Are you going to say what you need to say? Are you going to be a leader, or whatever the role is that you want to play? It's up to you to decide that. What I can tell you is that it'll be in some environments it'll be hard because of course they don't know what to do with you, so they have in their mind preconceived notions about who it is you are and what it is you need to be doing in that space, and it's up to you to say, yeah, no, that's not how this is going to play itself out. I can't tell you the number of times I said to the person in charge or the person or a person in the space, hey, I am the mechanical engineer of record for your project, and so they would know and understand, like, you don't get to just tell me to do things. You don't get to talk to me that way. You don't get to inform me of what my work will be when your work and my work impact each other. So we need to be in conversation. There needs to be a collaboration that's happening, as opposed to you telling me, because you think or have assumed that I don't know, or that you know more than me. So
Right.
those things, I had to do those things um, more than I probably wanted to, because by nature, I'm an introvert. So normally I'm in spaces where I'm, preserving energy, and sort of, I get energy from myself, not necessarily other people drain me. So I have to, I'm usually like looking around like, okay, and then literally having this conversation with myself. Are you going to speak up? Are you going to say something before really doing that?
Yeah. So is that sort of, kind of a catalyst of your reasoning to, move more towards STEM educator and what you're doing now?
So um it was a catalyst because my thought is that yes, we have to change the environment, but I'm almost thinking to I've always thought to myself, um two things. I think two things. One is that I'm smart, but I'm not that smart, right? Like, there should be more of me here, right? There should be more of us, more women, more Black women, more women of color in this space. We can do this work. So it's not about skills or ability, right?
Right.
It's something else. And so it was my goal to change that. So whatever I can do, however I can make a change in that way, I'm going to do that. The other part was, we have to change the environment. We just do, because there's something about the diversity of thought, that there's something special that it brings to the table. Putting up a building, designing a new anything, right? Diversity of thought is great, and it adds
Absolutely.
to the specialness and the innovation that we need. And so, if everybody who looks like you have had similar experiences in the room, what is this thing going to be? And so
Yeah.
you need someone with a diverse perspective, a diverse life path. The way they view the world is not the same. You need those people in places to challenge, to question, to throw a different idea on the table that might marry well with the original one. You need all of those people in a space. We need them. And so that's a part of my work. It's always been a part of, I think it's probably was always going to be a part of my work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you kind of like think about it and, look around today and where we are, how did we get here? And it's, a bunch of old white men sitting in a room
Still,
together, not bringing in outside perspectives of people of color and other genders and just diversity. So thank you for putting in the work for that. So I have a question that I always we kind of like to ask our guests. When you were in school, did you have any female science teachers?
ooh, let me. You mean in high school or you mean in college?
I mean, at any time, really. High
Okay.
school, college, even before
See,
then. I had two, one in elementary school and one in high school. And then that was the only two female, like, science influences I ever had.
I had two. I had a chemistry teacher. Oh my God, her first name was Charlotte. I can't remember, and I don't know why I remember her first name. It's not like we called a teacher by their first name, right?
Right.
But her name was Charlotte. She taught chemistry, and you could tell she really loved it. Like, we didn't all love it, but you could tell that she really did. She was just so into it. Um, and then there was my physics teacher. My brother's on here. If I want him to comment because I know he had her too. But
Yeah,
my physics
comment if you
teacher,
remember.
um, my physics teacher, the experience in her class um, really did change my perspective on, like, being a STEM person. She made science fun. She made physics make sense to me. And still to this day, physics is my favorite science because it does make sense to me. Like, I get velocity, acceleration, mass, and for all of those things. Like, that made so much sense to me. Like, oh, it explained the world to me. And so it was in her class that science started making sense, and I'll always thank her for it, because she started me down a path that I don't think I would have been. I don't know where I would have been, but I don't know that I would have continued to be, interested in science if it was not for her.
Well, that's great. And I'm so glad that you had that positive influence to sort of like steer you towards a career in STEM, because I feel like that is another part of why there aren't so many women in STEM is where we kind of go out through school and there aren't these women influences. So maybe the younger generation just kind of gets it into their head that like that's not for them. So
Yeah.
it's really great that you kind of had that influence to get you going in that direction.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna try and like shift gears and talk about maybe some fun questions we'd love
Oh,
to kind of hear
okay.
your perspective on. So dead or alive, who would you like to have lunch with?
Ooh, dead or alive, who would I like to have lunch with? Um, hmm. think, Tasha, think. Okay, so I would love to have lunch with Gabrielle Union, because I just think that we would have a lot of fun together. I don't know if people know who Gabrielle Union is, but she's married to Dwayne Wade, but she's also an actress. She was in the Bad Boy series, but she's also on a television series that I can't remember right now, but it's on Fox.
Okay.
Uh, and so I just love her. So and she's her daughter on Instagram is hilarious. So I just think that we would have lots of fun together. Um, I
Okay.
would love to have lunch with, of course, Oprah, and
Right.
Michelle Obama. Obvious reasons, of course.
Sure.
Um, but if I could like sort of take some literary licenses, I would love to have lunch with Minda Harts. Minda Harts, who wrote the memo. I just want to sit and learn from her. Um, it was such a brave act to write that book, and for it to be as huge as it is right now, talking about the stories of women in business in general and all of the stuff we go through,
Right.
but how to battle through that and persevere and be and not lose yourself to the to the world is it's just an act. It was an act of self-care that I think more women should do.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And as you know, last May was Mental Health Awareness Month, which Hot Girls was promoting very, very
Yeah.
hard, and we were part of the Mental Health Action Day with MTV, which was really, really exciting. And if anyone who's watching, if you don't follow Dr. Tasha, the nerdy STEM queen, you definitely should. You always post a lot of like inspirational quotes and self-care. So what is a favorite quote that motivates you?
So these days, there are two. Shirley Chisholm, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, is my personal idol, um, and her one of her. I'm gonna pull it up so that I don't get it wrong.
Is it
Uh,
the one with the, if they don't give you a seat at the table,
no,
bring your chair? Oh,
no, that
that's a
was a
good
good
one
one.
too.
But she says, you don't make progress by sitting on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. And so the first time I read that one, I got chills. And I think I read it for the first time, for the first time, maybe about 7 years ago, when I was really thinking of like, hey, Tasha, what's your second act? What's your second act? What are you going to do? Right. Um, and I knew I was going to be in business for myself, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And that quote I don't know where it came from, but it was just there, and I was like, right, Tasha, you're an ideas girl. Like this is, you live here, right? So what's the idea? What's the big hairy audacious idea you want to accomplish? And it was always like, I want to reproduce myself, and in whatever form that takes, right? So if that means I have to coach you through your current situation, then let's do that. If we need to put together ideas for programming for young girls, then let's do that. If that means we need to be writing books for kids, then let's do that. And so that it every time I read it, I just yes. So
Yeah. And I mean, you've definitely taken it to heart. I mean, besides the now two books that you've published, which by the way can be bought wherever you buy books, Amazon, I know, right?
yes, it's
So
on
go out and
Amazon right now. Barnes and Noble later this next week. And so Apple Books, all of those things are coming. So I have to, the process is a whole nother show.
right, right, for sure. But yeah, it's so important that you've taken that to heart and put these ideas out there, whether it be children books, the ABC engineering book, or London Gets
London gets
Curious,
Mhm.
or about a little girl and her aunt kind of discovering all these options in STEM careers. And not only that, you also have a podcast too, which is another way you kind of like reinvented yourself. So, you know, it seems like that quote is definitely motivated you in many directions.
Well, that's one, and I want to talk about my podcast a little later if I could take that.
Yeah,
some.
sure.
So the other one though that I live by is and it was said by Iyanla Van Zandt, who is she had her own show on TV, and then she's written a whole bunch of books, so you can look her up. But she said on somewhere, she said, "When you see crazy coming, cross the street." I live by that one too.
Oh, I've never heard that one, but it's something, you know, I think I needed to hear that today, actually.
Yeah, you know, you got to, you see it, you're like, yeah, I don't think I want to go that way.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so it looks like we got a question, and we have a question from Lydia, which is, can you tell us about what STEM careers are in the book?
So I don't want to tell you too much. I still
you don't want to give it away.
But I can tell you a few. So I think we talked about a few earlier. There's an ethical hacker, there is game developer, there's a marine biologist, there is a welder.
Okay.
So 4. So those are like I said, these are things that you probably aren't thinking about when you think about STEM. But I think that they're important for us to know about and for us to encourage girls and not limit themselves. Because if we can talk about where we find most of the girls that are in STEM, girls, young women, they're in the life sciences. So we're talking biologists, physicists, chemists. They are there more than they are any place else. So computer scientists, engineers, data analysts, anything else in the other portions of math, technology, engineering, mathematics, we aren't there. Girls aren't there. So we want to make sure that the spread is equitable,
right,
across all of them.
Right. So to date, what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Ooh, okay. Are we talking overall, like personally, professionally? That's a broad question.
That is a broad question. You're right. I mean, I guess, you know, professionally, because like you said, you're kind of in your second act now, or maybe your third act, with you being self-employed as well. So yeah, I mean, with being a mechanical engineer turned, you know, STEM educator, you know, what sort of, you know, career accomplishment would you be most proud of?
I'm the proudest of this podcast and these books.
Great.
The podcast has taken me places, and I've gotten to meet women that I wouldn't have ever gotten the opportunity to meet had I not started them, had I not really been intentional about reaching out and saying, hey, your story is important. We need to hear your voice. Tell us, you know, what your experiences have been, the things you've learned from them, and what advice would you give to the next generation. So this podcast is a win. I just found out this week that I am the number 5 rated out of 50 rated podcast for women in STEM in the United States. So
that's awesome. Congratulations.
It's such a surprise. Just like, oh my God. Are people listening? Like, you know, some days you have those moments where it's like, are people are listening? Are they getting what I'm giving?
People are definitely listening. Anytime that I've searched for it, I put like ST and it's like the first thing that pops up. So I know it's super popular. People are definitely listening. Anyone who's watching right now, if you haven't checked it out, Stemming in Stilettos, wherever you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, you know, it's really great. I mean, there's a lot of good moments of, you know, learning about these fantastic journeys of like women in color and STEM, but you know, it's also really heartfelt, which is kind of, you know, what I appreciated about it. That it's like it's approachable and you know, you can relate. It's like, you know, Hot Girls, we don't have careers in STEM, but it's something that like really interests us. And, you know, if we feel that we can like connect and relate to it, which I think is, you know, really the most important thing about your podcast.
And I thank you for saying that. And I'm so appreciative of every person who takes the 30 minutes or so to listen to, not to me, but to the stories that, you know, these women who come on, and some of them are really brave because they're still in these careers. And so it's a risk sometimes for them to get on and tell their story. And so thank you for just taking the time to listen to what they have to say and what their experiences have been. And I am so grateful and appreciative. So,
Oh, of course, of course. Yeah, everyone, please go check it out. It's really awesome. And, you know, you kind of, you know, sort of a way to wrap this all up. I think your podcast does this a lot. You know, what advice do you have for the younger generation of women inspiring for a career in STEM?
so first, I want them, there's a couple of things I really want to say to them. Do it. Do it. I'll be straight up honest. It's not going to be easy. You'll run up against some people who don't want you there. Persevere anyway. Do it scared. Find your voice. And I know that that's such a broad thing to do, but I really want you to take the time, center yourself, get to know who you are first, and then move forward. Get yourself a plan of action, where you want to take your career, and then move in that fashion. Because so many of us are like, I want to be a mechanical engineer, but there's no plan for once you become a mechanical engineer, what does that mean? And so I want us to play smart and not hard. We gotta be smart.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, how would you go about, you know, playing smart versus hard?
So that's a very good question. So the other part of that is connect with other women. We can't do it alone. There's too few of us for us to walk this road alone. There are some of us who are here and who are willing to be a mentor, to be an ally, to be a sponsor. These are three different roles. You can have colleagues and friends. You can have mentors, people who are, they're going to give you the good advice, but you need a sponsor, and that the sponsor can be a male or a female, somebody who's speaking about you in rooms that you are not yet in. You need a sponsor. And the thing is that sometimes you have to wait, you have to grow and develop before a sponsor appears. And then sometimes you don't even know you have one, but there's somebody speaking about you in rooms, and you want them, of course, to be speaking positively about you.
Right.
So you really want to make sure that these are three people or three roles that you are looking to have fulfilled as you go along the course of your career, and please continue to grow. There are certificates and other skills that you can pick up along the way. Do those things. Don't think that you've arrived because you got the degree. The degree is the first step. The rest of it is like on the job training.
Right.
And you have to be open and willing to learn, sometimes the hard lessons, and sometimes these are lessons that are really crucial to your career advancement.
That is such great advice. I mean, and I think for any young person, whether male or female, going in STEM or not, just surround yourself with the right people. Make sure that you are, putting yourself out there in a positive light. I think that's really great advice for everyone, but particularly for young girls interested in STEM. Well, Dr. Toshia, thank you so much for chatting with us tonight. We're super excited that we finally got a chance to talk to you. And for everyone that joined us tonight, apologies for our technical difficulties in the beginning, but go out there and buy Dr. Toshia's books, ABC Engineering book and London Gets Curious on Amazon. And yes. Then definitely check out her podcast if you can, Stemming in Stilettos, on Spotify.
Everywhere.
Apple Music, everywhere, wherever you get your podcast, okay? Yes. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good night. Bye. Dr. Toshia.
Bye.